blow it in the playoffs.
Welcome everyone back to the Puck and Leafs podcast. I'm Joe Choss with my boys, Coach Frank, and we've even got Bobby Bottles here because it's a big episode. It's the William Nylander extension podcast. All the news about Slick Will getting 8 more years for 88. And as we get into it, I mean, the Leafs were in California on the road trip last week. They were California dreaming as they swept through that road trip, getting all 6 points. And by the end of the weekend, word began to leak out that Nylander was about to sign an extension, and finally it was made official today. He gets 8 years, $92 million, 11.5 AAV. He gets the majority of the money as signing bonus. There's also a no movement clause in there as well. So my first question to you guys is, was there even any negotiating that went on here, or did the Leafs basically give Will whatever the heck he wanted?
That's the that's the $92 million question now, isn't it, Joe? We speculated back in the summer that, if they should have took the $10 million, if that was what indeed was offered, they probably would have been laughing. I think semantics, I think the number was always there. Just the way he started the year off, and Treliving probably said, you know what, every time this guy scores, that number's going up. And I think more about, like, what I was a little shocked with was, like, things like the no move, like that contract's essentially bulletproof.
Yeah.
Like that is like movement proof, buyout proof, full no move. Like, essentially he had Treliving and Shanahan by the balls, essentially. So I think that's what the market was. Either the Leafs are going to give it to him or somebody else was. And I know we'll jump into like percentages and stuff, but what were they really negotiating against? Right? It's not their fault. It's not Nylander's fault. He bet on himself and he won. He hit the jackpot. Not only did he win, he destroyed it. Good on him, good on his agent, and I'm sure his dad had a good part in it as well. So,
Bobby, you got any words for that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Coach Frank says, but at what point does Leaf management say we're not going to pay somebody? Yeah, I was thinking back to
the problem is, Bobby, are you going to start that now when the guy's top 5 in league scoring? Like, you're gonna put your foot down now at this point?
Yeah,
they were stuck, man, because the alternative is you don't pay him and you lose him for nothing, because they looked at in the offseason possibly trading him for defenseman, and there just wasn't any deals there. So now once you've gone into the season and he started playing the way he was, like Frankie said, he had them by the you-know-what. So there's 2 choices. Either you sign him for whatever you did or you let him walk for nothing. And that second option was not an option for this team. There's no reality. There's no world where you let him walk for nothing and you're better next year. Because if you look at the free agent pool, even if you split that $11.5 million off a couple guys, 3 guys, I don't see how the team gets better. So
are they any better this year?
The issue I have with it, so a couple things, it leaves me a little bit worried, because in order for this deal to make sense 3, 4, 5 years down the line, he's being paid as a top 5, top 6 player in the league right now. He needs to keep up that level of play throughout the duration of the contract, unless the salary cap goes up to a significant level that instead of 13% of the cap, it becomes like 8% of the cap. Then you have a little bit of play there where his play can dip a little bit, but even still, not that much. What ticks me off, like you mentioned, Frankie, is they could have had him in the summer, but allegedly, Leaf management, like the rest, a lot of people in Leafs Nation, Meyer signed for 8 years, 8.8. That's his comparable. No, it wasn't. It was never his comparable. He was always getting more than that. If they would have just offered him a fair deal from the start, $10 million, I think, times 8, he would have they would have signed him. And now you'd be laughing. But now it is what it is. You throw your hands up in the air, and at least you got him for the next 8 years. He's a great player. He's perfect for this market. Nothing seems to phase him. We know plays well in the playoffs. So I don't know, Bobby. Like, what's the alternative, man? You tell me.
at some point you can't sign everybody. I was gonna say, like, I was thinking about it today.
Well, get used to it, Bob, because guess what? There's another guy who's going to be a free agent in a year from now.
Oh, I hope
And-
we get to that discussion.
And here's the thing. He's got them by the balls already because he's got a no movement clause already in the last year of his deal. And they don't want to lose him for nothing either. So he's going to get signed. And I'd start with him right now and say, you're getting the exact same deal as Will. We see you guys as comparable now. Like, that's what you're getting. And if he chooses to leave, then again, you're going to lose him for nothing. It's not an option. So
before Bobby goes, can we confirm? Like, is that no movement the same as he had the last few years, where it kicks in July 1st, or is it just?
Oh no, I think it's kicked in July 1st this year, and it continues the rest of the way through the contract.
But they still have a chance to trade him at the draft. Is kind of what I'm getting at.
Nah, we'd have to check that,
Okay,
but I don't think
let's
so.
check that. All right.
I just look at a guy like Panarin, who is just dominating the league. At some point, Chicago was like, we've got Kane, we've got Taves, we've got Seabrook, we have our core. We can't fit him in, and they ended up trading him for almost nothing. At some point,
Was that a good deal for them? No,
it was a terrible
wasn't.
deal.
Exactly.
But they needed to
you
do
gotta
it.
make a terrible deal just because, like, that makes no sense.
It did to them.
You're
because-
using that as an example as to what the Leafs should do, and it was a terrible deal. No, I don't think they should make a terrible
First of all,
deal. I'm
Panarin's
sorry.
a much better player than Nylander. But second of all,
Not much.
this
better.
is management saying we don't trust our core. Obviously, they don't trust Tavares because he's 100%.
How is
100%.
that? How?
Chicago
Just
said,
need to-
Chicago said,
Okay, go
we
on.
trust our four guys.
Mhm.
Toronto said, yeah, we don't really trust Marner. We don't trust Tavares, which they shouldn't, because they're not going to win anything. This team is no better today than they were yesterday, except they're $4 million more in the
You
red.
may be right. You may be right, but I
Not,
don't
not
see
even.
how.
There's no. First of all, we've seen the best Will Nylander you're going to see, because we know he's playing for a contract. So from here on out, it's that downhill decline,
We
like
hope
most guys
We hope
playing
not.
for a contract. But all they've done is just taken $4 million away from the rest of this roster. So you can say they were kind of handcuffed. At some point, you've got to say, we've got to move on from somebody. This team is not going to win again. The defense is still terrible. The goaltending situation is still a disaster. And they've spent $4 million more. Did they have to do this?
Why is the goaltending situation a disaster?
Because they don't have a goalie right now.
Well, Joe Wall looked damn good before he got hurt. They've got the beast coming up. He's a young guy. Martin Jones was just the second star of the week, you know.
Yeah, no. Like, are you sitting there going, okay, this signing has now made this team a Stanley Cup contender?
No, but
No. So then what was the
no,
point
I'm
of
not.
this?
But if not signing him and losing him for nothing definitely doesn't make you a contender either.
It's also the fear of the unknown, right? Like, you look at what's available coming into the UFA. They lose him. There's no guarantee you can replace him. You know, I'm not saying everybody's irreplaceable. There's only one guy on this team who's irreplaceable, and we all know who that is, right? So the fact is, it's like they're taking a chance. It's one of these things where the devil, you go with the devil, you know, right? Is it right? No. Is it wrong? Too early to tell. But as Joe mentioned, you're getting the best. You're getting the best of him right now. Would it be safe to say you can get similar production for at least the next 4 or 5 years, where that window stays open for Matthews' contract? Right? Like, there's a lot of ifs, and like, you can split this right down the middle. There's no clear-cut answer, yes or no. Either you love it or you hate it. You know, for me, I love the player, but I hate the deal.
I think that's what most of Leafs Nation lies. Like everybody loves Nylander. Well, not everybody, but most of us love Nylander. We recognize what a great player he is. It's just the number is too high, and it frustrates us because every single one of these guys has gotten paid. Like, why can't one of them just say, you know what, I'll take a little bit less and start that trend?
To a
But
certain extent, I
it's
think
too late for
Matthews
that
did
now,
a little
obviously,
bit.
because that should have been set last contract negotiations for these guys. And in a way, you feel sorry for Will, because his was the bargain contract of all 4 contracts. His was the bargain.
And I
And
think
now
at that
he's
time when
kinda
they
caught up.
signed it, it was like, holy shit, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, but the thing is, Joe, you know, I also look at it like this. You know, Leaf Nations were getting upset that none of the core 4 signing for max term, and you know, Matthews got that extra. What do you get? 4 year, 13 million, whatever it was.
Yep.
We all rolled our eyes. Now we got a guy who gets 8 years at a number that a little higher than expected, but he took the max 8 years, and now, that's too long. They should have been lower.
Yeah, Frankie,
And,
because at
you know what I
28
mean?
years
You
old,
can't
I don't
have
know
it
if you
both
should be
ways,
signing
right?
guys to 8-year deals, but
I agree. But I'm just
the
saying that
8-year
the
deal should have
consensus
happened last
is,
time.
Listen, any 8-year deal that I've ever seen sign, it never pans out in years 6, 7, 8. It just doesn't.
Well, like the
It's not
Crosby one did because he
sustainable.
signed it at the right time. Like
He also signed for
He's also
8.7 million.
yes.
So
Also
that's a steal.
He's Sidney
right?
Crosby too. He's not William Nylander.
No,
He's not going to be.
I was just trying to make a point that if they're signed at the right age, they can hold their weight.
This is the best Nylander you're going to see, though. Like, do you guys think he's going to be better?
But Rob, he's a top 5 player according to points.
Don't say in the league. Don't say in the league.
He's a top 10 player this year. Yes, he is 100%.
You think he's a top 10 player? I think he's a
the way
perimeter
he's
player.
playing.
So
yes,
he is a perimeter. He's a perimeter forward for me. And
I
for
watch
me, that's
every game, unlike you. And I can tell you right now, he's the best player on the ice on most nights, both teams. So yes,
what, Rob?
He's a top 10 player this year.
I would have been okay with that, but I'd say the last year,
he's not the perimeter player.
He's changed his game
yes.
as a.
Oh yeah.
I would say Marner's a perimeter player.
Hey,
Marner's 100% a perimeter player.
He changed his game. We'll see how long that changed.
And that's fine.
He got paid now.
No,
yeah,
it's not fine.
It's a fair
not
comment.
Fine. He got top dollar, and he's not a. I'm sorry. If you said he's a top 10 player in the league, I would so disagree with you on so many levels.
This year he is, Bobby.
He benefits from playing with one of the top players in the league, getting the top attention.
For what?
John Tavares?
Games?
Most of the time he's playing with Tavares.
Yeah, but who gets him okay, when you game plan for the Leafs, do you game plan for William Nylander and John Tavares, or do you game plan for the other line?
But I think that's their plan.
Yeah.
Pick your
so
poison,
he gets
right?
so he basically vultures second line pairings. I'm just saying, if you say he's a top 10 player, I got a bridge to sell you. He isn't a top 10 player in this league. Now, that contract might be good in 5 years when the salary cap goes up, but right now, and again, he's the same player he was yesterday, and he's getting $4 million more. Did you have to sign him? I guess if you couldn't trade him, yeah, you had to sign him. They had to move somebody for me. They were probably going to lose a deal, but they had to move somebody. This core is not going to win. The decor is still terrible.
Can the core win in like 2 years when Tavares is making maybe $5 million as opposed to $11 million?
When he's making 5, yeah, that's maybe. So you're banking on that he's going to take a discount?
That's something that they're
He might not even be playing. He might not even be playing in 3 years.
He's got 1 year left, Bobby. He's definitely going to be playing in 2 years.
In 2 years.
If he wants to stay on the Leafs, it'll be at a number like that. Otherwise, that's the guy they're going to walk away from.
But, how much do we look at this and this is, again, we don't know. Okay, we know the cap is going up next year. We don't know how much it's going to go up the following year. So that 11.5 could be looking at, I don't know, 9.5, 8.5 as years go on. I look at it as a percentage of the cap. So, Rob, you mentioned Panarin. So Panarin's point totals last 3 years before he signed for 11.6, 7 years at 11.6. He's at 14% of the cap. I'm not comparing the skill set and stuff. I'm talking about, the percentage that they're to take up the cap. So 14% for Panarin, but he had 74 points, 82 and 87. Nylander, the last 3 years, after now signing 11.5 for 8 years, 13.1% of the cap, 80 points, 87, and on pace for 120. I'm just showing you comparisons, Rob, because that's what people do. I'm not going to compare him to Pastrnak because Pasternak's probably the best goal scorer in the league. Anybody comparing Nylander to Pastrnak is that they don't watch hockey. They do not. I'd rather have Panarin.
Pastrnak is not the best goal scorer in the league.
But you look at he's one of. Come on, Joe.
He's one of the. You said he's the best.
Yeah.
He's not the best.
I'm sorry, one of the best. I call it for for what it is. And that guy's got nobody to play with now. So, but all I'm trying to get at is they're hoping the way. And again, I am not an apologist for Kyle Dubas because I don't want to mention that guy's name anymore. But the Leafs are kind of hoping that what Dubas tried to do 2-3 years ago, whatever it was, 4 years ago, when they signed these deals with Matthews, that cap was going to go up last 2-3 years, right? We all know what happened. Pandemic happened. Now they're trying to do, I think, the same thing. They're going back to that well. I don't like it. I'm just trying to give you the thought process. Is it right? Probably not. But Shanahan is definitely all in with these guys. And you're right, Robbie. Something's got to give, man. Now, I'll admit when I'm wrong. Joe, how good does that Morgan Riley contract look right now at 7.5?
Yeah, and people respect it because he took less and he signed for the 8 years.
So that's kind of your guy to be like, okay, maybe that's the value contract now. But at the same time, when Marner comes up, this is where I think this is the guy you have to play hardball with. It's either he's not going to like it, like you said, Joe. You take Nylander is getting or nothing. He can either sit out or force a trade, and that's maybe a guy where again you may not win the trade.
But he won't sit out. He doesn't need to. He'll play out the last year and then he'll leave for nothing. Also, that's also not an option. I'm sorry, it's not.
I think that's a guy you can move. Personally, I think that's a guy you can move.
Sign him without a no movement clause. And then you could trade him for more than what you're going to get.
Nobody's going to want him.
Okay, so hold on a sec. Nobody's
going to want him?
Nobody's going to give up value for him.
Why?
Because people, like, if we can see it, that this core is not going to win, you don't think other people can see that this core is not going to win? Okay, I don't believe that the league is that stupid.
Nobody's trading for the core, Bobby. They would be trading for one piece.
For one guy.
Yeah.
The guy that everybody agrees is now the most is the most overpaid out of the three.
But that's inconsequential. Like if your team that believes that Marner would help you, then you'd be willing to give him something, especially if there's term on his deal. Yeah.
And at 12 million, what he's going to sign for, you're going to give up a top player for that. They're going to try to lowball. You got to trade him well in that last. Yeah. I agree with you, Frank. I think you got one of the four have to move. I've said you got to.
It's going to be Tavares in 2 years because he's either going to move or he's going to come in at a much lower cap number. That's
I think it could be Marner, man. I'm going to put I just for some reason I think that I think again Treliving's coming into this looking at this team. This is not it's not his core. So obviously Shanahan is kind of moving the strings here. But this guy looks at me as a guy be like, he's not going to put up with this perimeter shit. He's not going to put up with this dilly dancing. Like that's not his MO. Again, it's just a gut feeling. I think he does what he did with Tkachuk. Like now you have the guy who set the precedence. There could be a deal down the line.
He has a no trade clause. He's got to agree to it.
Anything
if
is
he
possible,
says no,
Joe.
They're screwed.
Anything is possible. Listen, we sat here saying that there were immovable contracts on this team, right? Somehow they got it done. Anything is possible. That's all I'm saying. I'm not picking the team. I'm not picking the player. Joe, at some point, you want to play. You don't just sit out and just for the hell of it. You want to play, right? You're telling me they come to him, try to flip him to the Rangers I'm just picking a team. He wouldn't want to play in New York. No, you accept the deal. If they send him to Arizona, yeah, I'm kiboshing that. I get it, right? All I'm trying to say is it has to make sense for the team and the player. But this is a guy, if you want to follow social media and follow kind of the narrative, I have a slight feeling that he's trying to start to lose face in this city with the way he's playing, the way he acts.
Well, he hasn't had a Mitch Marner caliber season. Let's put it that way.
I get it, but who's the lightning rod when shit goes wrong? It's kind of him, right? There's only so much of that you can take.
Maybe we've seen the best of him too.
It's possible, Rob.
Perhaps
it's possible.
Here's the thing that also ticks me off with the Nylander negotiation because, okay, the Leafs were the only team that could offer him 8 years, right? So he gets 11.5 a year. It's $92 million total. If for another team to match $92 million over 7 years, they're paying $13.14 AAV. If they offer the same amount, he's likely going to stay with the Leafs because that's all he's known. He's a big fan of the organization. He loves staying here. So for a team to sway him away from Toronto, they're at least going to have to offer 13.5 over 7 years, or even $14 million over 7 years. I don't see a team doing that. So.
Are you going to pinch pennies though at that point? Whether you're paying 11 or 11.5, is that going to be a big deal? If you're expecting the cap to go up, I'd rather pay the guy more and say, you know what, we're not going to negotiate with you. We have faith in you. Kind of, I don't want to say save face, but almost say we're entrusting you and we're not going to negotiate. Negotiations kind of suck because you're trying to tell the guy, hey, you're not worth that, but then asking him to play like you're worth that. For me, if you were talking about the difference between 9 million and 11.5 million, yeah, all right, let's negotiate. But 11.5 and 11, big deal. If you're expecting the cap to go up, it's almost nothing.
You know what sucks? The hard cap. Because before the hard cap, a guy would get signed, you'd say, yeah, it's a lot of money, and then you'd move on with your life. You wouldn't care. But the amount that a guy gets paid is tied to the rest of the team, and it just sucks. Their system sucks. They should totally go to a soft cap with a luxury tax, but That's another topic for another episode.
This happened 4 years ago. This was Dubas that basically gave the keys to the franchise to these
100%.
guys. And that's it. Now it's their, unless you move them all out, which they're not going to do because the Leafs are terrified of being irrelevant again, because this organization was irrelevant for 15 years. They're terrified of that.
But nobody would move them all out.
To change the culture, of course you would.
You're a top 7-8 team, and you're going to go to the bottom of the standings. Why would you do that?
To change the culture.
Oh,
because
so let's be a last place team to change the culture.
That's what I'm saying.
Let's just do that.
That's but Joe, that's what we're saying.
That is the dumbest idea you've ever come up with on this podcast.
I'm not saying
just shut up. Stop it.
I'm not saying it's an idea, but you're a Leaf fan, so you're too close to this. Other teams would say, you want to play hardball with us? We're moving you out. And we're going to bring in guys.
You out, guys. I don't like being a top 10 team. I want to be a bottom 10 team because that's way more fun.
Can I ask you something? This is the Toronto mentality. Let's be a top 10 team instead of let's win the Stanley Cup.
Because
that's a loser.
You have a chance to win.
You're a loser.
Yes. I'll agree with that.
That's a loser mentality. Let's just be a top 10. We're cool with being the 8th place team.
You have a chance.
Loser mentality.
That's this whole city. You're a bottom 10 team. You have no chance.
Loser. Of course you do. You can rebuild with the right players.
It's not going to take. Buffalo's been trying it for 15 years.
And that's what I'm saying, Joe. They're terrified of going back because this franchise was a disaster for 15 years. But this was 4 years in the making. This was 4 years ago when Dubas gave these guys everything they asked for. That's it. You're gone. Your organization has been given away. They run the franchise now.
Yep.
And now it's just whatever you guys want, we're going to give it to you.
Okay.
This was 4 years in the making.
They had all the leverage this time. Let's see what Pedersen gets in Vancouver.
No, that's bull.
Let's see them hold a hard line. Yeah, let's see it.
I would. If you got
Joe, that's
you're
different, Joe. Hold on a sec. That's different. What Vancouver now has the opportunity to do that the Leafs couldn't is if they say to Pedersen, all right, Elias, you're going to be making $11 million, but he's the standard. Nobody makes more than Elias Pettersson. A lot of teams have done a thing where nobody makes more than this guy, right? And it's a trickle-down effect. What Toronto is doing is, hey, shit, Matthew's making 13. Hey, Marner, might as well make 11. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, let's call for you guys. Get
Matthew makes the ceiling. Everybody else falls underneath.
Yeah, but Joel, there's nobody on that team that can make more. Quinn Hughes arguably could make more than Pedersen, right?
They're going to try that with Pedersen, but Pedersen is going to call the shots on what that number is.
What if
it's not going to be the Canucks? I'll tell you that right now.
Well,
Pedersen is going to get whatever he wants from them.
It's
because,
the
Bobby, they're afraid of being irrelevant like they've been for the last 10 years. Same thing. And first-line centers that are top players in the league don't grow on trees in this league.
This team has been irrelevant they've been irrelevant for far less than the Leafs were. The Leafs were irrelevant for an extended stretch. The Canucks were like in the playoffs in 2015, 2016. I agree with you, but at some point you can't let these guys dictate. And if you got to move on from a guy, now if they believe that he's a guy that can help them win, go ahead. I'm just telling you, this core is not going to win. Like you look at the Chicago core, you want to pay them what you want because they were going to win. The LA core was going to win. The Pittsburgh core was going to win. This core is not going to win. That's all I'm saying. And yeah, you're not going to rebuild now, but like I said, they own the franchise, but you had to play hardball 4 years ago. This is partly on Dubas for me.
Partly?
Yeah. Right. Let's move on quickly.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about that. So let's touch upon the goaltending. We didn't touch upon the Samsonov getting sent down to the minors. I think we were all in agreement that had to happen. I mean, pucks were literally going through him, and he just couldn't play an NHL game anymore. So they call up the Hilda Beast. He has not played yet, but Martin Jones has more than filled it in capably for him. Second star of the week this past week. Where do you think the Leafs are like looking at goaltending, trying to acquire a goaltender, or what do you think the plan is from here on out for that?
God forbid Martin Jones gets hurt and then Hilda is forced to get in there. What happens if he gets, shellacked? You're telling me as a coach, you don't have enough confidence in your team to beat either Anaheim or San Jose with me or Robin net, let alone Hildeby? Like, you could have played him one game. Martin Jones is not Marty Brodeur here, like who played 76 games in a year. Like you could have gave him that game. Give him a taste. We all know he's going back when Wall comes back.
There was no way he could possibly play any worse than Samsonov played the last couple of games.
But that's not even the point. Samsonov could have went with them on the road, stayed with the boys, get out of Toronto, worked on his stuff there with the goalie coach, aside from whatever. He could have opened the door the way Hildeby's doing. Like
I do.
I don't know. It's useless to me. Now they're coming back to Toronto, right? Which you know what's going to happen in the first game back from a road trip on a letdown against a bad team.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you know it's coming.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not shocked that Jones is getting a start here, but like, play the guy. You know what I mean? Like it's I don't know. It's just to me that's more indicative of your team than the goalie. Because I think Rob said it for the start. Their D is horse shit right now. The number of danger chances that they've probably allowed. Now, again, you just finished playing, 2 men's league teams, but the high danger chances they've allowed before that against, Columbus, the game against Buffalo, like it's atrocious. So I don't know, man. Samsonov for me is an afterthought. He ain't coming back. Robbie or Joe, he ain't coming back. Like you don't fix that in 2 weeks. That's an off-season Rocky montage training in Russia type of work that he's got to put in to come back. So, yeah, there are enough teams that have 3 goalies that don't want to carry that extra cap that they could probably flip an AHLer for, a useful AHLer, a prospect like Abruzzese or, whoever that they got down there. They want to make a like-for-like swap. That's probably what they do. They did it with Riddick a couple of years ago when they grabbed the third goalie just to be that's what Jones was supposed to be. Jones was supposed to be that guy kind of waiting in the wings. I think they do grab another. So the Wall, Jones is your backup, and then, a guy like, Chris Dreger or something as your third. I pulled that name from Seattle because I know he's been up and down. So watch it be him.